Hey friends, thanks for taking time to listen in on part 2 of a conversation John, Dick, and I had about F1 circuits and tracks. Do you ever put something away with every intention of bringing it out later and find it much later and go, oh my goodness, how did I overlook that? Well, that's what's happened to this previously unreleased content. We recorded this conversation in 2023 and intended to release it before. Well, here we are finally getting around to it. So to bring everybody up to speed, here's how this conversation came to be. We decided to sit down and discuss the full calendar of Formula One circuits and tracks, all 24. Well, that was a large order, one that I will say I'm most grateful to John and Dick for doing. I recommend listening to our earlier episode to get our full analysis. In my opinion, though, you don't have to listen to them in order, so listen to this now and go back to the earlier episode. Okay, before we get to our conversation, I need to ask, can you help us out? If you haven't already, please take a moment to follow us and give us 5 stars on your favorite podcast app, as well as share this episode with other F1 fans. We know our growth is because of you, and the guys and I thank you. Hope you enjoy our conversation. Okay, guys, I am looking forward to part 2 of our conversation. I mean, I think it's a pretty, ambitious effort that we are going through of all the races for this season. Granted, we're not the ones traveling in the traveling circus all around the globe. That probably is really exhausting. We're just exhausting ourselves by our brains and our mouths. But I have loved our part 1 conversation and want to pick up from the point of summer break is over and the very first race that will return us back into the season is Zandvoort. So highlights. John, why don't you start? Tell us a little bit about this track and why you consider it a good track, if you do. I'm kind of presuming.
All racetracks are good tracks. That's just some of them are better than others. It started as a street race back in 1939, and then after World War II, the Dutch took the roads that the Germans had built to get around Holland. They built those into a road course. So they did kind of what Silverstone did with with the base there. It's 2.6 and a little miles long now. They've had over the years problems with noise restrictions, and there've been a lot of battles. In fact, that's one reason it went away for about, I think, 15, 16 years. It's the characteristics of the track that are really attractive is it has real fast sweepers that are very popular. It has a hairpin called Tarzan, and the how that came to be named is a little bit controversial and all that, but because it has long, straight, fast sweepers, Tarzan then becomes a very good place for overtaking, creates some excitement. Of note, and I do like the track. I think it's really good that it's back on the calendar, and especially since Max is killing it, and you got the Orange Army at every other track. That's a really great thing for Holland to have this track. It's interesting. The sort of the historical aspect of this is that this is the track where Piers Courage died in 1970 after an accident. So that's sort of a sad piece of it.
Is that what precipitated the track being not used for a long period of time?
No, it was primarily the noise and the finance of it that restricted its use.
Is it similar to, I think you've mentioned, I don't remember if you've actually mentioned it on the podcast, but offline, Silverstone, it's a bit of a challenge to get there. Is that the same when it comes to Zandvoort? Is it difficult to get there?
No, it's actually fairly close to population centers, which is why the noise restrictions became a problem. In fact, if I remember correctly, they couldn't even start the race before, I think it was 2:00 or 4:00 or something on Sunday, or maybe it was practice on Saturday or something. But because of the population close by was protesting the noise.
I see. Okay, Dick, what are your thoughts?
Well, very much similar to John, and of course, being steeped in the history of the sport, certainly Piers Courage's crash there in 1970 sticks out. I believe it's also the same track where Roger Williamson died a couple
Yes.
of years later in very similar circumstances. Basically, in a one car crash, the car catches fire, the driver's trapped and literally burns alive. Um, and yet the race keeps going, and so it was just a different day and age. And the marshals were poorly equipped, and in fact, in the case of Roger Williamson, the car was upside down and burning, and one of the drivers named David Purley went in and into the fire and tried to pull Williamson out. There's video of it. It's just horrific because he kept trying and trying and trying to pull him out, and finally he just gave up. And so anyway, that was obviously really, really tough stuff. And then a few years later, Mario Andretti totally pissed off James Hunt by doing what any good oval track racer would do, and that's make a pass on the outside of a corner like Tarzan, which is kind of like an oval kind of corner, except it's turning right instead of left. And Hunt was protecting the inside line, and Mario was just kind of like, okay, fine, I'll just pass you on the outside. So he did.
Wow.
Didn't set real well with Hunt, but Mario was just doing what came natural to him. So anyway, those are kind of the things that kind of stand out in my mind. I think that the way they've redone the track, it's really a really cool place. I think it would be really fun to go drive it. There's a couple of corners that are, for a Grand Prix circuit, are pretty steeply banked, or at least it looks that way on TV.
Yeah.
And I think that could be a real hoot. And of course, then with the Orange Army, I mean, they've got to go and refine their game to get quite to the level of the Tifosi at Monza. But yeah, they're pretty crazy.
Yeah.
They're pretty crazy. We like crazy.
Yeah. I mean, isn't that the one that last year the whole orange flares started really coming out? And then I feel like
Oh yeah.
maybe it was Austria that it was a big whiff of it all around the track, but then maybe it was Zandvoort where the flare actually landed on the track itself. I just remember that was the one that I felt like that's just too far. Like you can have all the support you want, but I mean, I think it's a little obnoxious, all that stuff, because then you can't see what everybody there has paid lots of money to see. And those of us watching on TV want to be able to see the thing. But the flare going on the track, I thought that's too far. Let's rein it in. I know we're enthusiastic. Okay, that's not because I don't like Max. I wanted that pointed out. If it was red, I'd feel the same way. So on that note, let's move to Monza. Dick, why don't you give us a little bit of the highlights on that one?
Well, of course, Monza is another one of these tracks that was built in a park. And over the years, again, there's been problems off and on with that track, mostly for, again, environmental reasons. There'll be things like, well, we need more runoff areas, and that means cutting down trees. And then the environmentalists go in and stop the work, and the drivers themselves say, hey, look, if we don't have more runoff area, we're not going to race there, and those kinds of things. So again, just a super classic circuit. They back in the 50s, they actually built a high banked oval and invited, for 2 years in a row, they invited the stars of the Indy 500 to come out and basically compete in a War of the Worlds on this oval. And that track is still there. It kind of links up with the rest of the circuit, actually. And I think they ran it maybe once or twice for the Italian Grand Prix as well. But it was abandoned. I mean, it was just too much. And the banking, I think, was close to the banking that you would see at a place like Talladega, which is super, super steep, as opposed to an Indianapolis, which is relatively flat. And over the years, the track itself was originally laid out. It really kind of looked like a boomerang. And but over time, they've had to add chicanes because the cars were going so fast that, I think you could probably get launched into the next country if you had your brakes fail or something like that on some of those corners. So they put the chicanes in to slow everybody down, which also then gave passing opportunities, but also increased the opportunities for carnage. For example, a couple of years ago when Max and Lewis got together and Max's car wound up on top of Lewis, those kinds of things, so pretty interesting. And I think just from a historical standpoint, a buddy of mine was at Monza the year that Mario Andretti was called up by old man Ferrari himself, and he was brought in to replace Peroni, who had been injured in another F1 race. And so, here was the homecoming of an Italian-born world champion driving for Ferrari, and Mario comes back, hadn't sat in an F1 car in several years, I believe, and he goes out and he sticks the thing on pole in qualifying, and that drove the Tifosi crazy. But then when Mario just stopped on the main straightaway and basically just, hammered the throttle and dropped the clutch and just burned up his rear tires, the Italians literally rioted.
Oh,
And
wow.
Andretti had to be pulled out of the car and hidden because
Oh,
they were so
my.
thrilled, right? Oh yeah. This friend was he was a mechanic on an F2 team, and he was telling me about it. And he was just sort of like, the Italians. It's one thing about Ferrari, but then you put an Italian, and they still think Andretti is an Italian. They don't care that he's an American citizen, but he's an Italian. You put him in that car, oh yeah, magic happens. So anyway, I love that story. Love that story.
Oh, my. Okay, John, you have anything to add to that, or you want to go and speak about Singapore?
Just a couple of things I'd add is it really is quite a fast track. There's really like 6 corners and famous corners, Curva Grande and Lesmo and Parabolica, which is now called Alvareto after Michele. But they, even now, the top speeds there are like 221 miles per hour. And
Wow.
they enter into the first turn at about 210 miles an hour, and they start braking 130 yards from the turn, and they go down to 50 miles an hour. So the approach speed on that is just spectacular, and that's a great track and a lot of fun. It's a really great track, I think, would be for a first time enthusiasts to see, and certainly to be.
Yeah.
Is the weather something that has to be taken into consideration there as well?
I don't think so. The time of year and everything is pretty laid back and fine. I don't remember there being weather issues there. Do you, Dick?
No, I don't. I think normally the weather is usually pretty decent. It's early fall at that time of the year, and given where it's located and all that, the place is just spectacular.
Yeah, it's
In the
northern Italy. What's
surrounding
not
area.
to love there, you
Yeah.
know?
Right. That's
Right.
true.
Right.
That's
Exactly.
true. Go have a nice pasta and then sit down for a wonderful day or two of racing. And then in the evening, go have a glass of wine.
Oh, and I'll tell you the glaces that they have there, the ice creams are just to die for.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe we'll have to do an expedition over there at some point just for the purpose of the podcast, right? That's what we should do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, twist
Yeah.
my arm. Twist
Yeah.
my arm.
Somebody crowdfund us on that.
That's right. So, John, what about Singapore?
Singapore, yeah, it's only been around since about 2008, and since the track, it's 3.1 miles long. And every race, there's been at least one safety car, so you can count on back to some of the things we were talking about in another recording. The safety car plays a factor in the strategy for the race. So that's an interesting thing about Singapore. It's also run at night, very challenging, very twisty, turny track. And has 23 corners. We just went to Italy and it has 6, and you got 23.
You're right.
So, I mean, it's very demanding on the drivers. It's it's in the middle of the night. It's hot. It's humid. It's a real tough one. It may be the toughest race on the calendar for them. Another thing about this particular race is, even though they have a certain number of laps and distance, I think there's not been a single Singapore Grand Prix that has finished on anything but the time. I think every single race has finished on the 2-hour time limit.
Really?
Yeah, and famously, this is the track where Nelson Piquet Jr. intentionally on team instructions crashed his car in 2008, the first race, to help Alonso win the race. So that's a notorious part of this particular race.
Yep.
That's the one that Felipe Massa's new resurgence on his loss, right? That's connected to that crash.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay, good. I just want to make sure I got my history in my head correctly.
That whole episode of Piquet crashing and all that, that's what got Flavio Briatore banned from F1 for, I think it's his life, isn't it? Yeah, he's been banned. Yeah, I mean, he's still highly involved, but he's just not allowed to come to the races.
Is that what you meant, John, when you said theoretically, or was there something more there?
Well, he is still involved, even though he can't go to the races, but there is discussion about him coming back to the races. So that, Formula One is permanent forever until it's not.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, I did not realize
Briatore Briatore himself, that's probably a whole nother podcast.
Absolutely.
I'm writing that down. We'll have to talk about that because you know how curious I am. I want to learn all this stuff. Okay, so for the sake of time, let's move to another Asian race. Dick, could you tell us about Suzuka?
Well, I think it's an amazing track. It's very unique in that it's a track that basically is a big figure 8, right? It crosses over itself via a bridge. It's got a series of S's right after the first couple of corners that are real rhythm kind of corners. You just have to kind of to piece together a quick lap. You've got to maintain a really good rhythm through there. There's a couple of pretty long straightaways that absolutely require a good exit. Not the least of which is that last chicane that leads onto the main straightaway. You've got to be able to get that exit nailed right to have a good lap time. Of course, when I think about Suzuka, I think about that absolutely magical lap that Senna did in 88 or 89 to put himself on pole in that howling McLaren of his.
That's the one you sent me the YouTube video of, right?
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. When he makes that downshift into 180R, and I mean, that engine's got to be at, I don't know, 18,000 revs. It's unbelievable. And, you look at it today and, the modern cars are so much better. I mean, they just drive through that corner. But back then, I mean, Senna was going through there, and it would just take your breath away because he was so on the limit. And so that place will always be mega special to me as a fan, just to watch that video. I mean, if you ever go and watch it, like when he's in turn 1, I think it is, if you put it on slow motion, the video, he catches it and loses it like 3 or 4 times just in the first corner. I mean, it's just, his hands are so fast, you can't see it unless you slow it down. It's just unbelievable. And of course, while all that's going on, he's shifting with one hand, I mean,
right.
Like, how do you do that? The guy was he was at another level. Anyway, from a fan standpoint and a fan of Ayrton Senna, that place is pretty special.
Is that also the video that I asked you after I watched it that he did the sign of the cross? That I thought he looks like he's doing that right before he starts, like as if
Uh,
he knew, okay, this is gonna be something.
this was going to be a big
I'm
one.
asking for a higher power to help me out right now to make it through. I think it was that one. I remember you sent me that as well as the Monaco
Yes,
race. And so I'm
and
just
I would not be surprised if he did, because he was a man of a very deep faith. Um, I know that there's been other times when I saw a video of him doing a lap, and he literally was reaching up and tightening his shoulder harnesses down even tighter.
wow.
And so that might have been it, but he may have been crossing himself too.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. John, you want to add in on Suzuka?
Suzuka is interesting in that the weather can really play part of the race and affect the outcome, and it comes late in the season, so it can affect the championship. And that's certainly happened in the 70s with Lauda and Hunt, again in the 80s with Mansell and Piquet, who were teammates, and with Senna and Prost. And so it could be interesting this year if, and I don't know that this is the way it's going to play out, but if Checo is able to stay within striking distance of Max, Japan could become a pivotal race. So it'll be worth watching.
Ooh, that is something to look forward to. I was thinking about this whole, which we'll have to talk about that separately, the two and what their needs will be over the course of the calendar. But let me ask you, John, there have been other tracks that have hosted the Grand Prix in Japan, right? This isn't the only iteration of that. That
No.
was what my research
Right.
seemed to indicate. Do you know why the other tracks weren't chosen? Was it because they specifically wanted this design?
Fuji was the other track primarily where it was held. I think that came down to economics, that the Fuji track decided they just couldn't afford to continue the vast amounts of millions of dollars or yen to host the race, and I believe that's why it went back. But I could be wrong. Dick may know or remember more than I do on that.
Yeah, I don't remember the real reason, but it certainly they made that experiment. There was also a track that they ran like the Asian Grand Prix on there in Japan at one time, but it was like a one and done, and it was almost like a a sports car country club that they upgraded enough to meet F1 standards, and then they did the one race and never to be seen again. If I remember right, I think Schumacher won it.
Mm-hmm.
He was driving for Benetton at the time.
Mm-hmm. It might have been related to something I was watching for Schumacher, which is when I saw there was a different track and I thought, well, that doesn't look like Suzuka to me. So and that led me down the rabbit hole of trying to figure out where else has this been held. And it seemed like it must have been Fuji, but there was a big rainstorm that stopped the race. I think they thought they were just going to have to end it. And then it all cleared up, which made me think about this 2022 at Suzuka and how the rain really affected the race. And so that was just why I was curious.
Well,
But
you may be talking about the 73 race, which is where Lauda and Hunt, and Lauda had just had his accident in Germany where he was almost killed. And he came back and was still in contention for the title for the World Drivers' Championship. And the rain was so terrible that he withdrew from the race, saying that his life was more important than the championship. Hunt continued on, struggling, and managed to gain enough places that he beat Lauda to the championship by 1 point.
oh, that is right. That's what I remember. That's it. Yeah. I just remember thinking, this is crazy, but it's so cool all at the same time. Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. Yeah. I'm still trying to wrap my brain around the level of courage and determination and maybe even recklessness. I don't know if that's the right word because I don't know. I don't want to say that, but just this determination, I'm going to do this.
Well, he had faced the Grim Reaper face to face just a few weeks before. In fact, he still had bandages from the burns.
Mhm.
And so it probably was a little more on his mind than on Hunt's, because Hunt had other things on his mind.
That's right. Well, I had read about that. What a colorful life he's led. Okay, again, trying to make sure I'm keeping us on time. Let's talk about Qatar, John.
Well, this is probably one of the newest races on the circuit. First year was 2021, and then it wasn't run in 2022 because of the World Cup. So this year will be the second race held there. It's a night race also. There's been a lot of controversy around this race because of the human rights issues, and Amnesty International has protested, as have others. There's been some discussion among some of the drivers about whether they should boycott the race or not because of that. It's an interesting track surrounded by artificial turf to try and keep some of the sand off of the track because it is desert. But it's a very fast and flowing track. If I didn't say it, it's a night race and a purpose-built track. I don't have a whole lot more to add to that.
What about you, Dick?
Yeah, I really don't have a lot to add either. I think that, again, with all the other, just to say the human rights issues and that sort of thing that you see so oftentimes in a lot of these countries. It's not just the Middle East, but there's other countries where there's certainly been issues. I think that's something that it's good to go and I guess be mindful of that, but at the same time, you would hope that, sport would be something that would be an impetus for moving things forward in a lot of different areas, human rights being one of them, so as far as the track itself.
But just engagement, I think that engagement through sports is one way to improve everybody's understanding and everybody's practices and policies, and it doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it also sounds like it's the same position that the U.S. has in Miami, in the sense that it's the second iteration of it. There's a lot to be determined to see the viability, if this is sustainable moving forward. But giving this opportunity, connecting it back to what you just said about the human rights aspect, giving this as an opportunity for soft diplomacy could be a worthy aspect of this, in addition to what we all love, the entertainment and the technique and the technology, all the other stuff that draws us to the world of Formula One.
Sure.
Boy, people are going to think we're deep thinkers since we've gotten into policy and stuff.
Anybody who knows me would know that is absolutely not the case. So
I know you do,
meet me,
and you're right.
And the funny thing was, I was just about to say, if anybody who knows me knows that that's where I end up going all the time.
That's true too.
You end up going way too deep. That's so funny. That's why you invited us to do this, right, John?
That's exactly right.
He knew that I would be shallow enough to balance your depth out. So there you go.
It's all about balance. All about balance.
That's right. That's right.
Exactly.
Okay, so Dick, let's go to the next race on the calendar, which would be COTA. I mean, can you hear my enthusiasm?
Yeah. COTA is really a very interesting track in my mind because of the way it's been set up. I mean, they make a big deal about the signature hill at the end of the main straightaway there, past the grandstands and all that. And that's fine. But to me, the S's that follow are pretty amazing. John and I actually watched Sebastian Vettel when he was still driving for Red Bull. So this is back in like 2012. And Vettel was magic through there. Another example of a Red Bull that was just better than everybody else. And it was designed for one of their drivers.
Yeah.
And it was almost like there's this invisible hand taking the car and turning it. It was just, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. And and so that whole area through there, pretty amazing. And then really what they call the stadium section, where it finishes up with that 4 apex corner, that is so fast. It's seriously impressive to watch those cars go through there. So, and the fact that, it's in Austin, so not that far down the road from us. I mean, having grown up in Texas and never, ever, ever would I have believed that the one permanent circuit that has been successful for Formula One in the United States in recent time would be in Texas, of all places. If somebody told me that when I was 15, 20 years old, I would have said, what kind of dope have you been smoking? But
Yeah, right.
It is. It just
Well, it is Austin.
So, that's true. This is true.
Maybe
We
that's
know what kind of dope they're smoking.
That's right.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what made them think we can do this.
We can do it. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. John, what are your thoughts on it?
It's probably one of the most challenging and one of the most popular circuits with the drivers, which I just love. And the facilities there are first class. I mean, in America, with respect to Formula One, we haven't always done it well. I mean, there've been like 10 locations where there've been Formula One races in the United States over the years. And this really is well done, and the drivers love it, and it's great for viewing. It's a fabulous place to go to a race because you can see so much, and you can see up close, like Dick was describing, as they came through 3, 4, and 5, and then 6, 7, and 8. It's just spectacular, and you can really see it. And we're prejudiced because it is in Texas, but it's not an unwarranted prejudice. It is a great track.
Yep.
Yeah. Like, it sounds like a lot of thought was put into it. And then one of the benefits probably is because in Texas, we are so large, there's the availability of space to really thoughtfully engage the circuit in a way that could be utilized and see what is helpful to have a fantastic race. It seems like the drivers even enjoy not only the experience, but it seems like it's a fairly challenging circuit as well, right? Like, it's taking elements from other races that bring that level of push for the car and the driver's skill. Am I correct in that perception?
I think so, don't you, Dick? I mean, I think it's a very technical track.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, they've got some good passing zones, which is not always what you will find at a track. But you really do have to, again, those S's, man, you've got to have a rhythm through there. You have to have the car going through the stadium section. I mean, they're on a knife edge going through there. When you see it in person, you can see the car just struggling for that last little bit of grip, and it's impressive. There's no question about it.
Can't wait. Cannot wait. All right, moving on, because I could talk about COTA for a while longer, but we can't let go of the rest of the calendar, which would be next is Mexico City. And John, what are your thoughts about that race?
Interesting race. Been around since about 1962. The most recent history was start from about 2015 when they moved to Mexico City and improved the track there. The real noteworthy things about it that really set it apart is it's about a mile high altitude-wise. And so it's not so much a problem now, but when the earlier cars were either carbureted or early fuel injection, it created more issues. It's very, very high speed. I think they get to about a 230 mile an hour top end on this. They've modified the track, and with Tilke came in and modified the track, and the stadium seating where the cars actually race through the stadium and people on both sides, and that's pretty exciting. Obviously, we saw Checo's dad go completely ape crazy there. So And it's Mexico, right? And
Right.
the Mexican people, God love them, are so emotional, and
Yes.
so it's really nice to see when like Checo's dad, but when
Yes.
when Checo comes through the stadium and he's doing halfway decent, I mean, he's got a big fan base here in the States, and they're all
Yes.
over it at the USGP, but in Mexico it takes it to a whole other level.
Yeah. I mean, so the day of last year's Mexico Grand Prix, I'm turning it on, and you know how we have the Formula One theme song now. Understand it's changed over the years, but the current one, I'm a huge fan of. I can actually listen to that during a regular day and week and get pumped up listening to it. So excited. And we'll have to talk about that video of the little baby dancing to the Formula One theme is another
Oh yeah.
conversation. I feel like her sometimes, but I sidetrack myself. I turn it on and I go, wait a minute, this does not sound like our theme, but it does sound like our theme. It's a mariachi sound. And I thought, only the Mexican Grand Prix can get away with this. Because I started thinking, could you do that with all the other countries? I don't know. But that one, it didn't sound offensive to me. It sounded, yeah, we'll let them have it. It's okay. It sounds just as exciting. And then the race, as you said, the people there were so excited. I kind of thought, wow, this is a different level of fervor that I have not seen anywhere else like
Mhm.
this. I mean, the display of emotion. I mean, I'm not saying that they didn't jump up and down and get excited everywhere, but it was the pride of Mexico,
Oh,
which
yeah.
made me saying that makes me think about our next race, which would be Interlagos and the Senna era, and what you had shared in an earlier conversation, Dick, about the love of Senna and Formula One. I just wondered if this is part of the cultural fabric in Mexico now. I open this up to both of you, but maybe more to Dick since John's already described it. But do you think that that's probably why they have such an emotional connection? It's the pride of the country because of
Sure.
Checo and all that.
Oh yeah, for sure. Just a little bit of an insight. My wife and daughter took a girls' trip last fall to Cabo, and while they were vacationing there, my wife made the comment that I mean, every time you turn on the TV, there's a commercial and Checo's in it. It's just like he's everywhere. There's on billboards, television, you name it. He shows up. The guy. I mean, it's one thing for us to say, "Oh, he's a national hero," because we've got sports heroes in so many different sports here in the United States. It's just sort of like, yeah, yeah, whatever. But Checo, I mean, he's the guy, man, and so wherever he goes, there he is. I mean, wherever you go in Mexico, there he is. It's like you can't get away from this guy. So
Yeah.
um, I think it's just really, really interesting, and I think that a lot of that has to do with the fact that, Mexico's got its problems, and this gives them something that pulls everybody together as a unifying force. Maybe
Mm-hmm,
again,
mm-hmm,
this is sport coming in, international sport,
mm-hmm.
um, being used in a really positive way, in my opinion. And
Yeah.
besides, Checo's just a good guy. You
Yeah.
just tell he's just a good guy.
Yeah, he really does seem like he is. Like in my mind, when we're talking about this, all I can see is Papa Perez wrapped in the Mexican flag at the end of last
Yeah.
year's race. And I do think it's nice to have that. I wished we had that here in the US, something that would unify us and remind us again. We may have differences and opinions, but civility and kindness and remembering that we're all in this together. That is one of the things I think that has drawn me to this world of Formula One is we can have the competitiveness, but you're still people just enjoying something fun.
hmm
Okay,
hmm
but let's
Yep.
move on to Interlagos, Dick.
Sure. Interlagos. This is a track that I actually have gotten to go to, not during Grand Prix weekend, but I did manage to sneak into the track and be
Wait,
kindly
what?
escorted out of the track.
Hold on, just come back. Wait, you snuck into the track?
Yeah, it's kind of a long story. So I was on a long-term consulting engagement in Sao Paulo,
Uh-huh.
And so one weekend, and the way it worked out is that there were several times when I would have to stay for 2 weeks in a row, and then I would be able to go home for basically leave on a Thursday night for home. But then, 4 days later on Sunday evening, I'd get on a plane and fly back to Sao Paulo for another 2 week stay in this consulting engagement. So I was down there way more than I was, at home. And so anyway, one weekend I decided, well, I'm going to go out and rent a car. And so I got a little Fiat 500, which is good because gasoline is like really expensive down in Brazil. And I made a run over to the kart track that Felipe Massa has his annual charity kart race on, and went and drove on that track with some absolutely insane Brazilians, and then drove on over to Interlagos, which, as it turned out, was just on the other side. I had no idea. It was just on the other side of this really big hill where my office was, where I was working out of. And went over there, and the place is surrounded by apartments and people's homes and all that kind of jazz. And I mean, it's sort of like street and entry gate. And I was like, well, I really want to see this place. And so I found an opening in one of the gates and slipped in and went around and literally walked out to the edge of the track. And I'm looking there and kind of going, wow, that hill going down from one down to about the third or fourth corner, that's a steep hill. And I was just kind of admiring everything. And then, a security guard came up and gave me a look, and I was like, see you later. So I went back from whence I came. But,
So is the statute of limitations up on that?
How many years ago
I
did this
doubt
happen?
it. Well, this was 12 years ago now.
Oh, yeah, I doubt it.
So,
You might be safe.
yeah.
Yeah, you might be incriminating yourself.
don't
We haven't
know.
told them your last name, so you're good.
That's true. Well, and what's interesting is I've got a buddy, just as a side note, who is a captain for American Airlines now, but back during the first Gulf War, he was a very cocky first lieutenant in the Air Force, and he was brought up on grand theft auto and kidnapping charges because, well, it's a long story, but anyway, that arrest warrant is still valid for him, so he does not fly airliners to Istanbul.
Oh my.
It's a really long story. He's a really good guy, by the way, but
That's
it's a
hilarious.
long story.
Oh
yeah.
my.
Oh yeah.
Oh my.
Um,
Dick, I'm learning more about you. I can tell you definitely are colorful. That's great.
Sketchy's the word that comes to mind.
Sketchy. I love it. Okay, so John, what are your thoughts about Interlagos? I mean, have you snuck out on the track?
Well, not there, but another story about the French Grand Prix that I'd have to tell you sometime. But
Oh yeah. Well, yeah.
sneaking into racetracks is kind of a proud tradition among racers. So yeah.
Okay. Well, now on that note, you're gonna have to tell the story because we don't have a French Grand Prix on the calendar. So when will we talk about it?
Some other time.
Okay. So this will just, for anybody listening, this will be a reason why they'll have to support our efforts to hear that story.
Yeah,
So
we still have an extradition agreement with France, so we got to be very careful here.
that's true. That's true. So John, any other things about Interlagos though?
A couple of things, in terms of history. Montoya made a very impressive drive here when he was, it was his first appearance there. Senna won a very emotionally significant race there in '91. That, I mean, there was a lot of crying and all kinds of stuff, with that. It was very emotional. And again, it was back to what Dick was saying in an earlier recording, that he really contributed to national pride, and so that he was aware of his role there. And then also, this is where Brazil is where Alonso won the race that cemented his first world championship. So that was kind of interesting too.
Interlagos always been in this part of the calendar?
I don't think so. I think at one point it was earlier, but it's also been at Jacaranda or something like that. It's alternated back and forth
In
between Rio and Sao Paulo.
Sao
I
Paulo.
see.
Yep. Yep. So in Portuguese, Interlagos means between the lakes. And there really are a bunch of lakes that are right in that area, in addition to all the housing complexes and all that kind of good stuff. And so, um, it, you know, it's quite scenic in a very different sort of way, I guess is the best way to describe it.
Mhm.
It was also at one time much longer. And again, because of marshaling issues and that sort of thing, they had to shorten the distance of the track. It's quite a bit shorter than it was in its original form.
I see. So then, okay, let's move on to Las Vegas, Dick.
Well, hard to say about what that is going to be, other than the fact that it's going to be a night race. It's Vegas, and it ought to be absolutely spectacular. I
Okay,
think the
hold on.
only thing that
Hold on. Are you being serious or are you being facetious? I don't know. So I want to make sure that's clear.
well, I'm being serious. I think the idea of Formula One cars going down, Las Vegas Boulevard past the Bellagio fountains at night with all the lights and all that kind of stuff, it's going to be crazy. Now, will it produce good racing and all that kind of stuff? That's still to be determined. But I think just from a visual perspective, I think it's going to be really over the top. And I do believe that, again, we saw it with Miami and all the star power they bring out, all the beautiful people, so to speak. I think it's going to be really, really over the top. But again, that's me as a businessman slash somewhat promoter. As a racer, I'm kind of like, yeah, we'll see. I mean, you remember I'm the guy that says, yeah, let's run a sprint race for Formula One and make it so short that they don't need to make pit stops, or here's the tires, boys, go for it, right? And so I love the idea of being able to race and put the elbows out and push and shove your way to the front. That's not what I think you're going to see in Vegas. But man, it'd be fun if it was.
Let me ask you this question, because when you said about like having a good race last year, especially, pretty much the championship was determined right at Suzuka. When I'm looking at the calendar, Las Vegas is the next to last race, but does not necessarily mean we're going to be waiting at that point to know who's the champion. What
Right.
what do we think? Like, especially knowing how good Red Bull is right now, they could have this locked up earlier in the year, couldn't they? Even earlier than Suzuka. I don't know how the points works. So do
Likely.
you likely, right? So then
Very likely.
wouldn't that then mean what you said about the pretty people being, or beautiful people, I think is the term you just used.
Yep.
Do you think it's just going to be Miami redo, but without, at least with Miami, you're wanting to see who's going to excel and win, but with Las Vegas, we're at the end and we could already know who the champion is. I'm
Right.
wondering if it's going to be so deflated in all this hype leading up to it, and then if you don't have a good race, it seems kind of
Right.
risky. I don't, as my analysis, I don't know if I'm being as clear as I want to, of like trying to process through. Could it be that we're just going to have I don't hope it's not going to be this, a snooze fest?
I kind of have a different take on that side of it.
Okay.
I think if the championship is decided, and I really do think it will be by that time, that it's really about the show. And I think it's the best place in the world to have uh, for lack of a better word, a race that doesn't really count anymore. It's a fantastic.
Mhm.
It's going to be a fantastic show. I mean, can you imagine the showgirls showing up, running past Bellagio? It's going to be visually stunning. It's going to be a huge show. Miami is fantastic, but Las Vegas is showbiz,
That's true.
So
Yeah.
That's true.
I think it'll
Oh,
be a
yeah.
spectacular event. I don't know whether it'll be a good race. I rather doubt that it'll be a good, race from a race fan's point of view, but it will be a spectacular show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. and the sparks at night coming off the cars
Oh
and all that
yeah.
kind of stuff.
That's true.
Yeah, it'll be amazing. Now, the other part of it is, if the championship is decided, then you can also take the approach that from a driver's perspective, it's sort of like, okay, I don't have a championship to win, but maybe I can get a podium. So
Mhm.
I'm going to be even more aggressive and try to get a result so that at least we got something to talk about going in to the off season. So that's the other side of it is that you could see a situation where there's, half the field are saying, no, I still have something to prove. I'm going for it.
Mm-hmm.
And
One of those deals.
probably
Because the
even
midfield battle,
Oh, right, the midfield battle for sure. But let me ask you
yep,
this. Okay, so when you brought up drivers, it made me think about teams. Teams will definitely want to be releasing their drivers to do that show because this is the greatest opportunity for advertising. It's a marketing
yeah.
strategy, right? So here you've got what you just said, John, of a great show. Yes, you're not Red Bull, but you want to get your car, whatever your sponsors are, out there and visible. So you're going to probably release your driver to do whatever
Well,
they
and
want to do, right?
right. And speaking of the teams, while the drivers' championship and the manufacturer's winner, the championship manufacturer, may be decided, it still may be a toss-up for who's second, third, and fourth in the manufacturer's championship, and that's millions and millions of dollars. That it takes a whole lot of hats to make $1 million, but
Right.
a good result here for a second, third, fourth place team can make $1 million.
Right, and which can set them up for next year, like wind tunnel and all that other stuff
Absolutely.
too. Okay, so there's some good hope that it could look good for the racing aspect. We're not questioning the entertainment value, or at least the efforts, hopefully, in which it won't be a replica of some of the wah of the Miami Grand Prix, but
Right.
maybe they'll have done a good debrief of not to do those things again in Las Vegas. And they are known for their entertainment in Las Vegas. Okay, so I feel like we have talked about that. Good. And you've made me want to be hopeful for Las Vegas. Last race of the year, Abu Dhabi, John. What do you think?
Well, Miami has a fake marina, but Abu Dhabi is a real marina with boats and water and everything. So that's a pretty cool thing. I like this Yas Marina circuit. That's where Alonso came on early on in his career and just took Schumacher on in a big way. It's a high speed. The straight there is about 6/10 of a mile long, real tight turns, and especially the 10, 12, 10, 11, and 12 turn are real challenging. And from a historical perspective, it's where Vettel won his first drivers' championship, which is kind of cool.
Okay. Dick?
well, again, it's a night race and it's in the desert, and I have to say it's pretty spectacular. I mean, just that whole Yas Marina environment with the hotel, the marina, it and then the track itself, which I think is a very cool track. Um, I think that it's just a great place to kind of wrap the season up, because it is. It's just it's a spectacular place. I'd love to go there and watch a race in person.
You want to talk about the money side of Formula One, Sabrina? The track has the entity that's built that has spent upwards of 40 billion with a B dollars to develop the hotels and the country club and the golf course and all the things that are there in around the circuit, surrounding the circuit to support it. 40
Wow.
billion dollars.
I did not realize that was the volume. I mean, when they do the pan outs of Yas Marina and you watch the content that F1 puts out of them going and doing various, the fun social media stuff that they make the drivers do, it seemed kind of over the top, but $40 billion? Wow. That's definitely about the experience of the people getting to go there for sure. I guess if you're going to go to that race, especially as a general person, it's a race of a lifetime. And then for the people who are super uber wealthy, it's like another day in the park. So you got to make it sure high quality and really, prestigious, I guess is the word I'm thinking. I also keep thinking about the image I feel like I saw of the race at Lewis and Max when Max won for the first time. When you talk about the beauty of the night race and the sparks and the fireworks that went off after that very controversial win.
Yeah, I mean, it's just it's great viewing. I mean, however you want to couch it, it's pretty amazing.
Well, okay, so I have a question though. For races in the Middle East, I think I've posed this before when we were talking about the first of the four. Do you think that that's a little bit overboard doing that many when you line up this many races that we do in a year?
I think that it's interesting because we think that maybe 4 races in the Arabian Peninsula in the Middle East is too much. But if we look at Europe, where the sport traditionally has lived, there's a whole lot more than that.
Mhm.
And we don't think that that's too many. And if we go back to the issue of international politics, what better way to try and help this part of the world come into the modern world than by showcasing a modern sport there? So I don't particularly have a problem with it. I think it creates unique challenges with the sand and the desert, the heat, and all of that. But and certainly there are other issues of political concern. But no, I don't think there's too many.
And especially by starting and ending the calendar there, we can see the difference of what the teams have learned over the course of the season to deal with things like sand and the heat and all that when they're doing testing in Sakir, and now they're ending up in Abu Dhabi at the end, and what they have adjusted. Okay, wow, we made it through all 24 races. Sorry, 23 races. I did this in the last recording too. Sakir is a testing, and then it's the first Grand Prix of the calendar, so we actually only have 23 races. But this has been fantastic in my opinion, from my personal knowledge, and my hope is that those who are listening will also feel that way, that they have gained from y'all's knowledge base and had a few laughs as well with us. Thanks, guys.
You bet.
Thank you.
Okay, friends, what did you think of our conversation? Drop me a line via email, sabrina@2guysagirlandf1.com. Can you help us out? If you haven't already, please take a moment to follow us and give us 5 stars on your favorite podcast app, as well as share this episode with other F1 fans. We know our growth is because of you, and the guys and I thank you. And with that, let me say, we'll keep talking and you can keep listening in, because we're just 2 guys, a girl, and F1. For John, Dick, and me, Sabrina, thanks for listening.